As the Vikings return to practice this week, they're going to look a lot healthier, which means it's time to make some decisions about who's playing where. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day every single day. I appreciate my hashtag everydayers so very much. Today is Town Hall Tuesday, which means I am going to answer your questions as submitted to me via the Google form, which you can find in the description to any episode, as well as some of the hot takes that you can submit via that same form anonymously, and I'll react to them on the show. We'll do that near the end. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. The first question I'm going to take today comes from KOC Hates JJ, who asks, now that KOC has confirmed that JJ is being soft benched for the season and has once again refused to commit to him ever starting another game ever, who should the Vikings target to be their 2026 QB? Okay, so I know you're asking this facetiously, but I started with it because it brings up the topic. So a lot of Vikings appear to be returning to practice. The Vikings look like they're going to get Donovan Jackson back. They've opened Blake Cashman's 21-day IR window, so he will be back in the next 3 weeks. If he's not, that means there was a setback, and he goes on season-ending IR, so should be the next 3 weeks. Both quarterbacks that have played for the Vikings, JJ McCarthy and Carson Wentz, are ready to practice. They participated in whatever they did on Monday. It wasn't a full practice, and there isn't a practice report for it, so we don't get full injury designations. But they'll be ready to go. Both of those guys will be ready to go on Wednesday. I feel like there's another one. Oh, Brian O'Neill. Also, they're getting some optimistic look at his ability to return. Obviously, you're hoping Harrison Smith and Christian Darrisaw can be off of pitch counts now that they've had a bye week to kind of rest and relax. There is, I think, something else I'm forgetting too, but there is a lot. Andrew Van Ginkel is the other one. Not as rosy of an outlook. Kevin O'Connell still doesn't really have a great timeline on him. It's a neck injury. Those can be really nasty, so we'll keep an eye on that. But suffice to say, the Vikings are going back into the vision that they were supposed to be this year. And we've never really seen that yet. We had too many people missing from the get-go, and it kind of only got worse, and the bye week came at a really important time, and we're getting the expected result on the other end of that. But there were a lot of questions about whether or not McCarthy would play, what goes into that, what they expect from McCarthy, how's the development going. And O'Connell actually had a few interesting things to say. Inexplicably to me, I'm hearing people interpret his comments as Carson Wentz is going to start and JJ McCarthy's like soft benched. And I think it's because maybe like it's because they talked a lot about development and how on the bye week they didn't really they didn't really focus on anything but like lower body mechanics. And building that foundation and kind of that like resetting that before he can get back on the field and get to what Kevin O'Connell called real practice reps. Well, yeah, there's no game to prepare for on the bye week. I don't know if you knew that. They didn't have a game plan for week 6 to focus on, so they could focus on mechanics as though it's an off-season practice session, which is a pretty good opportunity. And O'Connell did also mention like McCarthy hasn't practiced but once since they left Chicago. There was a walkthrough practice he missed because of his kid, and then the one practice that he actually participated in was the Friday before the Atlanta game. So that's it. So they kind of got a chance to resume that, and he was like really happy. You know, there was a lot of work. You started to hit a lot of throws. You started to kind of get back into the rhythm of things and sort of realign what you're trying to accomplish. We will see how the practice works out. I'm sure the media will be watching it like a hawk. Who's he taking reps from and stuff. But it's also unclear who's going to play center. It's not Ryan Kelly. He's still on IR. Is Michael Juergens going to be back? Is it going to be Blake Brandel again? Who's McCarthy taking reps from? Who's taking snaps from? Who's Carson Wentz taking snaps from? I'm sure they'll all be watching it like a hawk. But what I heard with O'Connell, who said, you know, I'm not ready to put a percentage on it with JJ McCarthy's health on if he's going to be able to play. I don't see how you can watch that presser, and the answers are all too long for me to like just cut to them. That would be the whole show. But go watch it. Go watch the Kevin O'Connell presser. Don't read the tweet. Don't read the quote the excerpt that some rage baiter put in his forward fan blog article. Go watch it. Listen to his inflection, his tone, the way he talks, and tell me that this is anything but injury rehab. I don't know. It still feels like an injury plan, and a coach that really wants to get going with the plan that they've had the whole time that they've been in Minnesota, which is to develop a young quarterback and to get this guy going. Greg asks, at what point does it make sense to keep getting by with Wentz and finding continuity with the whole offense, including JJ? Realistically, to be at our best when a possible playoff run comes, don't we have to bite the bullet and see what we have as planned? This is like the main crux of the argument, that at least the debate that I've had with Arif on the squad show about Carson Wentz and JJ McCarthy, which is about like, well, what's the tug of war between like the best version of the offense and the thing that's best for the team long term, which is, of course, developing McCarthy, right? And the more you start Carson Wentz, the more developmental reps that could go to McCarthy you're wasting, right? I'm not as persuaded by that latter point. I do think it's about I've said finding the best offense of the season. What makes you the best by the time you're playing the games that will decide whether you get in the playoffs, which happen in December, right? What makes you the best version of yourself there? You're 3-2 right now. You're right in the thick of things, right? And I think once you get into December, if you're still just like bumbling along with whatever you can cobble together with Carson Wentz and hoping that the other team is stupid and plays Justin Jefferson in man coverage all the time, which is what Cleveland did. Like if you're going to do that all day, then I guess we can just like continue to get lucky and any quarterback will work. But the best version of the Vikings is the one where they figure out how to get JJ McCarthy and his far superior athleticism going. I think we can all agree on that, and they should probably pursue that. That's kind of where I'm at. But if you're asking, at what point does it make sense to keep just getting by with Wentz? And it is the point where JJ McCarthy just clearly still is not ready to be an NFL quarterback. And you have to look at those two first games and say all the bad things that happened on offense were like squarely on him. He couldn't get the play in the huddle. He couldn't make the throws. He didn't know the reads. He didn't know. You have to like say all those things. I don't think you can prove all those things to be right, but assume that they were true and that internally, the coaches are watching this guy totally drown and not know what to do and not be able to relay the play calls and are, rolling their eyes and going, oh brother, we're in trouble here. And then over the last, calendar month that McCarthy's been out, it just hasn't gotten better. He still can't do the play call. You would have to have situations like the ones that like Ty Dunn described in his like Caleb Williams piece about how Caleb Williams in his rookie year just like couldn't figure out the play calls. He just couldn't relay them properly, and he got words wrong in the huddle all the time. By the way, there's one really mad Bears fan, hate watching Bears fan, that submits questions every week the Bears win that are like, are you ready to admit you were wrong about Caleb Williams? I got 3 from you this time, buddy. I'm not going to read them, but I will say you probably should have waited till after the game and not sent a whole bunch of stuff in the first quarter, man. That you maybe you want to hold off on it a little bit until you're very, very sure the Bears are going to win, because that got a little dicey for you. Anyways, the point is, do you have to bite the bullet and see what we have as planned? I don't see a world where Kevin O'Connell doesn't try to put this all on the field now that everybody's healthy. Now that Addison is off his suspension. Christian Darrisaw, hopefully, is off of a pitch count. You get Jackson back. Hopefully O'Neal is back soon, if not this week. Put J.J. McCarthy in that world. And if he ruins that because he just can't do the thing, all right, you blew it. You got to just figure out how to make this a sort of sensible offense. And maybe, put him in Rice until and try another offseason and see if it's over again. But if that's the case, and that's what's happening year 2 after a whole year of only focusing on the mental, it's probably over. And you're probably Will Levising this and going right back into the market and saying, all right, well, what's this LSU quarterback look like, right? Like, we're probably going right back into it if that's the case. But I don't think you go right back into it while just holding McCarthy on the bench. That would be pretty bad. And I think a lot of people would start losing their jobs if that was the path the Vikings took. Kevin McDermott's Pinky says, you talked a lot on the show about how we need to see improvement from JJ McCarthy. Can you quantify what that would look like? Quantify? Probably not. You're not going to hear me say, well, I think he needs to have 235 yards because that's the threshold for no. Or, this many yards per attempt. This is EPA. No, I'm not going to quantify. But what I will say, I'll try to qualify it. I think qualifying it is good. You want to see the feet married to the eyes a little better. I want to see between downs, between the whistle and the next snap. I want to see things move a little faster. They still aren't moving fast enough, even with Carson Wentz. So I know not all of that is on McCarthy, but you still want to see that operation work a little better. And you want to see him go through his reads with the proper timing. Sometimes he was too slow. Sometimes he was too fast. I want to see that dial in a little bit. What that turns into offense-wise and how many stats it gets is up to a whole bunch of other people. But in terms of evaluating McCarthy, those are the things I'm keeping an eye on. You guys sent me a lot of run defense questions and some other miscellaneous stuff and also your hot takes. So we have quite a bit to get to next on Locked On Vikings. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by BILT. If you pay rent, you probably don't like paying rent, but you got to do what you got to do, and you might as well get something out of it. That is where BILT comes in. BILT is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards that you can actually use. When you use BILT to pay your rent, you can earn flexible points that can be redeemed toward hotels, airlines, a Lyft ride, even future rent payments, and more. But it's not just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. Paying your rent finally works for you, and it doesn't feel like that money is just going into a pit of somebody else's wallet, never to be seen again. You're earning points on something every month that you are gonna pay no matter what. It's made everyday life feel more rewarding, from your neighborhood to your travel plans. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. And make sure that you use that link so they know we sent you. Today's episode is also brought to you by Rugiet Ready. Fellas, you've heard of Cialis. You've heard of Viagra. Maybe you've even tried those things. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. That's Rugiet Go Long. It's not just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for your confidence. And confidence is everything. It's like playing cornerback, right? If you don't believe what you're doing, everybody knows you don't believe what you're doing. And nothing really goes well after that. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula, so you can go the distance. And the effect can last up to 36 hours. So when you're ready, and you don't have to worry about breaking the rhythm of the whole night to go take a pill. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to rugiet.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 15% off of your first order. That's rugiet.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Make sure to use our code so they know we sent you. Moving along with the Locked On Vikings podcast, I have so many questions, a lot of them about the run defense. Real quick, I have been basically structuring my whole week around the tush push because the Eagles are coming to town. I was really curious about it, and I wanted to know more about how much it works and just how threatening of a play it is. So I have a Patreon video at patreon.com/LukeBrownNFL. I wrote a whole article over at Wide Left about it, and I'm going to do a show tomorrow with a lot of talk about the sort of the conclusions from those projects and what I've learned. I'm going to tell you about tomorrow on the show. But if you want to know in a lot of detail and see me show my work, you can go check those things out. Okay, let's move on to the next questions. The next one comes from Run Defense Enthusiast, who asks, hindsight is 2020, but how much better would the run defense be if the Vikings had not signed Javon Hargrave and opted to keep Harrison Phillips instead? Additionally, how much worse would the pass defense be? I mean, that's the bet that they made, right? I think the pass rush between Harrison Phillips and Jonathan Bullard last year, never ever getting interior pressure, was a huge problem that probably cost the Viking. Like you could probably give that a pretty good percentage of the blame pie for why the Viking season went belly up at the end, because they couldn't get interior pressure, and that just made it way too easy for offenses to hit them over the middle when they had to send blitzes, because that was the only way they could get quick pressure. The edges win, but that takes time, right? But they did have a much better run defense, and the run defense is pretty bad. So they basically just flipped those two in my idea. I think for me, the hindsight thing is I wish they hadn't traded Harrison Phillips away. that's my hindsight thing. And I think I said at the time, I was like, I kind of get it, but like, I think this is a really weird move. I guess we'll see what their plan is. And their plan was be bad at run defense. So I just think they shouldn't have done that. They should have just kind of taken their lumps, and maybe they would have to cut a player that they think is pretty good, lose Taki Taimani to another organization, or maybe they're going to have to cut it. Elijah Williams, we can't keep you in the building. I'm sorry. And keep Harrison Phillips instead. They were probably going to cut him at the end of the year as a cap casualty. And I think making this trade is partially that, where they already knew they weren't going to use the last year of team control. So they're only trading this year away, which is the only one. To use this year and cut him at the end of next year, I think that should have happened. And then keep Javon Hargrave also. I think they could have had their cake and eaten it too here. But you're right. Hindsight is totally 2020. We are where we are now, and they have to figure out how to keep up with some really nasty run games, starting with the Eagles, who are pretty famous for it, even though they're in a weird slump right now. Diamonic has a question about this after the last few games of run defense going poorly and the upcoming gauntlet of seemingly run first / run heavy offenses. Is it time to bring in Taki Taimani off the practice squad? I super expect this to happen. Yeah. I think you're going to, you've already seen one elevation, I think, from Taimani. Correct me if I'm wrong there. So eventually he's going to have to be elevated to the 53-man roster. I think that will happen at some point this season, probably soon. I think that means there's 2 elevations left, so they can activate him twice without putting him on the roster, and then they'll probably put him on after that. But yes, I do think that should be part of this. Elijah Williams is playing. He looks like he's playing a lot bigger than the weight he is listed at. I think that's an error. So Elijah Williams could also be part of this, but like those are not the starting zero tech Vince Wilforks, right? Like those are rotational guys at best that are coming in off the practice squad. So I think you're still in a weird spot, but I will be watching the defensive tackle rotation pretty strongly. And I want to count it by drives, not by necessarily snaps. How many times do Allen and Hargrave come off the field and get replaced by Redmond and Levi Drake Rodriguez? In the Cleveland game, those 4 guys all had about the same snap count. It was like 50-50 for those guys, which makes me wonder, is Javon Hargrave and to a lesser extent Allen, but Hargrave and Redmond, like Redmond might be emerging as more of a trustworthy player. Certainly doesn't match the resource allocation, but these things happen. That could happen, and then Taki Taimani maybe helps you, especially in those 3rd and 1 situations where it's really, really hard to stop, especially a team like the Eagles, but everybody's going to be able to sneak it on you because they know they're just bigger. Billy Bob Borton says, Mekhi Blackmon has been the topic of the Vikings Twitter convo for the last 2 weeks since he, in my opinion, lucked into 2 picks. This is being held against Kwesi because he chose Okudah instead. Am I crazy for seeing this still as a wash of a trade? I don't think I super agree with you. I do think that there is, again, I think they overcooked this a little bit. I looked at, so I haven't watched the Colts really at all. I know they're like the story of the league, but they just, for whatever reason, they just haven't really been on my radar. Probably because they play simultaneously with the Vikings a lot, so it's hard to catch up with what they're doing. But the boy, are they just like the Timo sour grapes? If you're a Vikings fan, huh? If you just want to be real mad about guys that aren't Vikings anymore, they got like Daniel Jones, they got Cam Bynum doing the worm in the end zone again. They got, Mekhi Blackmon's got a couple picks. I did go look at the 2 picks you're talking about. I wouldn't call them luck. The first one is a pretty good play. It looked to me like it was cover 2, and he like jumped a route that was breaking in. That's a pretty hard play to make. I think that was a really nice play as an outside corner, by the way. And then the second one, you could say, I don't know who 20 is on the Colts, but I would credit that pick to him as much as I would to Blackmon. It was like supposed to be a glance, but 20 contacted the receiver, broke it up, but the pass was already gone, so it just landed right in Blackmon's lap. Right place, right time for sure, but you still got to make the play. But what I would probably caution against is looking at that and then being like, oh, Mekhi Blackmon is having one of the best seasons in the league. Oh, woe is us. They let us go. And can I just really quick, can I rant? Can I just say something without everybody getting super mad? Vikings fans, stop trying to get people to feel sorry for you because you're a Vikings fan. Okay? I've heard enough of this. I've heard this for years. Oh, God, woe is me. Look at Stephon Diggs. He's playing so well on the other team. Oh, somebody get my fainting couch. Yeah, man, players leave. It happens. Guess what? The Eagles are probably super pissed off about Isaiah Rodgers too, the other way. It happens always. And Howie Roseman's one of the most respected GMs in the league, and it happens to him too. It happens all over the place. All right? We can critique and say, hey, that probably wasn't that smart of a decision. I think you maybe wish you had kept him in there. We walked into camp with a battle between Okudah and Blackman, and it just seemed like they never really thought Blackman was close to Okudah. I don't think they were correct about that. But they also walked in with the intention of running a whole bunch of safeties, and the Colts don't have that intention. So Blackman was worth a little bit more to them. I think it's okay to critique that move and say that was probably bad. Where you lose me is where you go, and therefore Kwesi should have never gotten the job. Like, whoa, what is, or when you start just begging people to feel bad for you because woe is me. Oh, I didn't have the guy on my team this year. And look, he did. If you think about it, just like by the draft, we do this all the time with like, oh, they picked a player and then 5 picks later, this guy happened. Well, the Vikings will pick on average 7 times a year, right? Once a round. The 5 picks after those guys, that's 35 players a year, right? That's a 7th of the draft. That's a 7th of the league. So somewhere in the 7th of the league, for everybody, no matter how good they are at the draft, there will be somebody good. And to woe is me about it is not unique to you. You are not special. You are not a snowflake. You are a football fan that roots for a team, and other people get to have good players too. It's just what it is. I got some hot takes to get to. We'll get to those next on Locked On Vikings. This episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We are back. The bye week is over, and we're back in the swing of getting some of your Grambles out there. And if you want to get started, if you haven't gotten started yet, you can go to FanDuel. Right now, the Eagles are favored by a mere 2.5 points. If you think that maybe the Vikings should be favored because they're at home, you think that's super low on them, or if you think the Eagles should be favored by way more because you think the Vikings are a disaster, whatever it is, put a little bit of money where your mouth is, of course. And you can do that at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5. And if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. For example, you could pick the Eagles money line. It's -142, not a lot of juice, but assuming the Eagles win, you would get your $300 in bonus bets. Or you could do an even more extreme version of that with like the Kansas City Chiefs money line. It's -700 over the Raiders, but assuming that actually happens, you would get $300 in bonus bets. Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. It's hot take time here on the Locked On Vikings podcast. You send me hot takes. I protect your anonymity, and I will react to them as I see fit. The first one comes from Mr. C, who says, if JJ had started the last 3 games, the Vikings would also have gone 2-1. I don't know if that's that hot a take. I mean, they would have, anybody wins the Bengals game, right? Then going 1-1 in those Browns and Steelers games. It's like the level that Wentz has played at, which I guess is subject of a lot of debate. I don't think it was very good. Statistically, there's this really funny thing. So if you go to RBSDM, which is Ben Baldwin's website, he's like a stats guy. And I use his website for like quarterback stats a lot. And he has Carson Wentz 12th in EPA, or at least it was before week 6, 12th in EPA over the stretch that he played. Okay, right? That sounds really good, right? And then Ben Baldwin himself posts like an adjusted EPA for quarterbacks thing that adjusts for, screens or like kind of automatic passes. And I think it makes a play action adjustment and pressure and all that stuff. And Wentz falls to 26th in that. So I don't know what adjustments Ben is making, but whatever they are, whatever he thinks is stuff that we shouldn't credit to the quarterback, remove that and 12th turns into 26th. So all you got to do is beat whatever threshold you think that is, or at least match it, and you go 2-1. I don't think it's a hot take to say that JJ McCarthy could have done that, even though I know the Atlanta game went really, really, really bad. But you kind of have to think he's Nathan Peterman to think that it would have continued. Womp Womp says the decision to pass on Darnold in favor of JJ is going to be viewed as disastrous as any other decision in Vikings history, barring the Herschel Walker trade. It will be seen as just as horrible as the Ponder pick, possibly worse considering how good Darnold has been. I think we're way too desperate to have a Johnny Flynn for the Vikings. I really do. I hear this stuff all the time with players who leave, right? I mean, we just did the thing with Mekhi Blackmon. It's hard to do it with Diggs because it comes stapled to the Justin Jefferson joy. So people didn't really do that even. But we did this with Xavier Rhodes when he got one interception in Indianapolis and played largely a cover 2 role before just kind of aging out of the league. We did this with Case Keenum when he played in Denver. We did this with Sam Bradford when he had one good game in Arizona before his knee fell apart again. We did this with Dante Culpepper when he was in Oakland. I mean, for my whole life, I've been hearing about how the next guy that, the most recent, whoever the most recent guy is that left the Vikings is going to be the next big thing. And we're going to be so upset that we got rid of him. And it's just, this is not your Chargers Drew Brees. Okay. It's just kind of never is. And so people have just cried wolf on this too much that I'm just never going to believe it until it's so abundantly clear that we already have the benefit of hindsight. We're looking back and everyone agrees on it like we would with Breeze now. Next one comes from A Gram of Uncertainty, who says, my hot take is that the Vikings will not have a decisive answer at QB for the remainder of the season, i.e. Wentz will play a few games to make sure McCarthy is healed. McCarthy will come in and play well a bit, not great, then have a bad performance, get replaced with Wentz, and so on, back and forth until the Vikings somehow make the postseason. That would certainly be a very 2013 way to do things, or more like a 2008 way to do things. That's the vibe, right? Where you have Tavares Jackson and he starts out and they were 2-1 when he went down, or they were 1-2 when Tavares Jackson got hurt, and then the backup comes in and goes 8-3, and then Jackson comes back after he's healthy, and Farrat goes to the bench, and they're like, whatever, and then Tavares plays a postseason game that they somehow got in. But that really required a much better performance from Farrat than anything we've seen from Wentz. Maybe that's what people think this is. Maybe they think it's a Farrat again. It's not. He's worse. She Carson on my JJ till I Wentz. JJ McCarthy is good. 2 games isn't enough for an eval, and nothing he has done has strongly altered my opinion. He needs a good O-line to develop and hasn't had it. The Vikings line is getting healthier, and we will make the playoffs. And if you think Carson Wentz should finish the year, your brain is rotting. I waited 2 years to watch these MFs pick Carson Wentz over JJ after 2 games. Oh, wow, this gets very all caps. Okay, so sick of it. Sorry for the rant. Yeah, I don't think that's a hot take. I think a lot of people really do think that, and they just are. I think for the most part, we're patiently waiting, and just I've been trying to focus on other things. I've been doing my tush push thing, and I had a whole episode about kickoffs and about Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. Because I think the conversation pretty quickly gets boring. It's like, do you just have to ask how you feel about offense that works this time, but is going to be very simple and easy to defend against a smarter team that doesn't decide to one-on-one Justin Jefferson, which the Browns did, by the way. I mean, inexplicably, and they walk into every game doing that because they have corners they like. Although they traded one away, I don't really know what's going on over there. But I think 2 games isn't enough for an evaluation on a quarterback. Should be the most ice cold take in the world. But a lot of people want to write the book. And I think I'm telling you right now, if you're trying to write the book on JJ McCarthy, if you're trying to say, I know what he is now, you are a fool. You've been made the fool several times by trying to write the book on Drake May last year when he was struggling. Now look at what he's doing. Trying to write the book on Josh Allen when he started. I know he's the example everybody brings up, but it's far from that. Trying to write the book on CJ Stroud's going to be the next big thing. Not so much anymore. Bryce Young's going to get Josh Rosen. Nope, he's figuring things out. These quarterbacks change and morph over time. Everybody sticks with their guy. None of these guys, when they're young quarterbacks struggling, go, we got to put the backup in just to, make sure we can have a reasonable offense. Doesn't happen often, right? Happened with Anthony Richardson, but I don't know. He's got a broken eye socket and he's got benched for Daniel Jones, who's balling. Happened for 2 weeks with Bryce Young. Then he came back. But that's kind of it. You got to just see these things out. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And if you're trying to make it a sprint, you're trying to be the first person to answer a question that takes 3 years to answer. The last one comes from the real Arif Hassan. I'm not going to protect your anonymity person who is definitely Arif Hassan, who says the Vikings should have kept Sam Darnold after last season. J.J. McCarthy would have to have an elite career to make it worth moving off of Darnold. You know, here's the thing I'll say about Darnold. I love what he's doing in Seattle. And I'm like low-key rooting for the Seahawks every week because I just love what Sam Darnold did for us so much. I'm enjoying seeing this a lot. So don't take this as sour grapes. But we have spent a long time in the last decade in Minnesota watching a veteran quarterback put up numbers and have a lot of encouraging games, only to fall apart 3 or 4 times a season, including when it matters most. Let me see Sam Darnold do this in the postseason, and I will join you in these regrets. But for everybody saying this and having their woe is me regrets about Sam Darnold, you show me what you were saying on like January 9th of 2025. You show me what you were saying, because I doubt it was as positive about Sam Darnold as it is now. So don't act like you know better. I will talk to you all tomorrow. And as always, Skull.